Hey everybody, welcome back to the Headrush Marshall series. This is the third installment, and we're going to be covering the JCM 850 and 100 watt models today. So we're on to the 80s now with separate preamp and master volumes. And along with that is going to come some extra fizz to the amps. It's the kind of thing that people either loved it or hated it back then and today still. One thing the JCM 800 is not, and a lot of people perceive it that way, is a high gain amp. We're still not into high gain stuff. But enough talking. Let's just get into this. All right, so just a quick rig rundown of this rig that I made for the 100 watt model of the JCM 800, and basically these are the stock settings. Right, everything's right down the middle except for presence comes stock at 30%. And for our impulse response, we're again using the Leon Todd impulse responses that are free. You can download them from his channel or from the rig that I'll be providing in the download link below. It'll just be included in there. And then I am using my little Headrush template, which I don't really want to have to explain this in every video, so maybe just go check out the separate video that I've already made on that. It's basically just a little bit of EQing and compression through an FR unit of whatever type to kind of bring out more of the guitar-centric frequencies. So just check out that video. It is my first one for the Headrush pedal board, and cover a whole bunch of that. Alright, so anyway, let's just hear what the JCM 800 on the Headrush sounds like at stock settings. So you get the idea. Just a little bit of chord riffing around there. At the stock settings, not my favorite sound. Where the JCMs really shine to me is with a little bit of juice in the preamp and actually lowering the master volume. Whereas, you know, the Plexis and the JTM, you kind of turn the volumes all the way up, and that's where that magic happens. You can do that with the JCMs. But then you just don't really have to or want to do all the same things with all the Marshall amps. I like for each kind of era of Marshall amps to have their own flavor, and for me the JCM 800 is all about that kind of like crack from the preamp gain, and some added tightness from lowering the master volume. So let's just look at the settings I would use for this amp. When I say lower the master, I don't mean a whole bunch. About 45 is just enough to get a little bit of clarity out of the master section there. And then, I'm not a crank the preamp guy, but you know, about 3/4 of the way up, 75%. We'll leave the presence right at 30. And I like the bass lower. I take the bass right out. Just down to 30, not completely out. And then mids, we were cranking the mids on the JTM and the Plexis. Not so much with the JCMs. They can get pretty harsh all on their own, which again was one of the complaints, was their harshness. But I think now people have kind of come to just love it, like it for what it is. So here's what that sounds like. Right, so that's the sound that I would use. And actually, these are the settings that I do use when I use the JCM live with my band. And then from there, I kind of just boost it. One of the nice things about the JCM and not cranking the master volume is it leaves the amp very boostable because there's room left for the amp to go somewhere versus an amp with like an already cranked and cooking master section. So my go-to is just gonna be the Tube Screamer again, and I'm just using cranking the volume on it, tone upwards a little bit, and 30% on the drive. I do like to add a little bit of drive, whereas on the Plexis I really don't add a whole lot of drive, but that sounds like this. So with that boost in front of there, it's even tighter, which is really awesome. It's I love the Plexi sound the most out of all Marshalls. I explained that in the Plexi video, but just that boosted JCM 800 thing. It's just so tight, and it's that early metal to mid 80s metal. Actually the entire 80s, and then even a whole ton of 90s music, modern music, was just stock JCMs, boosted JCMs, modified JCM 800s. So much music's been made with these. But let's just play around with that a little more. It's just much tighter than the JTM or JMP Plexi thing. Whereas if you had cranked the master on this amp, you would get really similar results, that kind of spongy feel to it, the way that the Plexis have it. But let's throw a little bit of lead tones in there. So we're already boosted, so we want that, and then we want a little bit of delay, just a little bit. Actually, yeah, let's go with a lot of delay. So I'm using dual delays here. This is these are identical almost, except for what it is it's a 300 millisecond delay feeding into a 600 millisecond delay, and then I use the graphic EQ to cut up some more lows and add some mids in and give me just 2 decibels of clean volume in there. And that's basically how I do a lot of my solo boosting, and that sounds like this. My favorite auto wash settings in there, and that sounds like this. Turn all that stuff off again. I made some scenes for you, make this rig nice and usable for you if you decide to download it. There's a volume pedal in here. These do clean up pretty well. I'm not going to use the volume pedal to do the cleaning up. I'll actually use the guitar's volume, but basically this is volume all the way up. can do all kinds of things. I actually think Jason Aldean's main guitar player uses JCM 800s in his band, and that's, you know, kind of the more rock and crispy side of what modern country is doing these days. It's not for me, but you got to give the players credit where it's due, even if you don't necessarily like the band or even the genre as a whole. I do like some country. I'm a huge Brad Paisley fan. But let's see, what else can I show you with this? You know what? Let's go to the 50 watt head actually. So the way I would set the 50 watt head up is just a tiny bit different, and that is because by the nature of its circuitry, it's already a little bit not as stiff in the lows, and I would say smoother in the highs. So let's just hear that. That's stock settings again, everything halfway up, presence at 30. That's what the Headrush comes with, and that sounds like this. So the 50 watt head naturally has more gain at lower volume settings. That's kind of how wattage works. It's not really about volume. It's more about headroom. But let's just see. I would use the preamp at like 70. We'll lower that master volume again to about 45. I do like the presence up on this a little bit. And then the bass, we'll bring that out just there. Not all the way down to 30 like in the 100 watt head. Mids we'll do about 65, and then 70 on the treble. And that sounds like this. So, with less headroom there, the 50 watter just gives up the goods a little bit sooner. This one, as opposed to the 100 watt, the 2203 that came out first, the 2204 was a much bigger hit. I think for the reason of just perceived more gain. I'm not quite sure, but I think it was just the 2204s that people refer to as like the vertical input models that became really desirable. That's the one you see recommended all the time, as opposed to the I guess the horizontal input models. But so let's hear that guy boosted now. So again, still tight. I would say it's not quite as tight as the 100 watter, just because the bass, with less wattage, the bass frequencies are just a little bit less supported. But that's desirable for some things. This is the sound of 80s metal in a lot of ways. People would boost the crap out of them to get even more juice out of them. And let's just hear a little bit more stuff here. Let's do some crazy. We won't do the super crazy lead. We'll just do some basic leads. No dual delay stuff here. yeah, I'd say we pretty much covered those amps, so I don't really have a whole lot more to show you. These are just my recommended settings. Maybe you've been struggling to make the JCMs sound good because you had kind of a misconception of what they naturally did. But there you have it. Don't forget to download the rigs if you want to try them out, or just cop them from the video. And it would really be helpful if you subscribe to the channel. I don't charge for anything. I don't believe in charging for turning dials on a modeler. I'm just looking to have a little bit of fun and show people the cool stuff that the Headrush pedal board can do. And yeah, it would just be helpful to get subscriptions and support and comments, and just let me know what you think, things you would like to see, that kind of stuff. Thanks for checking in, everybody.